The funeral was small and dignified, exactly what Grandmother Winslow would have wanted. 23 people gathered at Riverside Methodist Church in Columbus, Ohio, to say goodbye to a woman who'd lived 91 remarkable years. I stood in the front pew watching the minister speak about her kindness and strength. Grandmother had raised me after my parents died when I was 8. She'd given me everything: love, stability, a home. Now at 64, I was saying goodbye to the last person who'd truly known me my whole life. The service ended around 3 in the afternoon. My cousin Kendrick stood near the back, barely participating. He'd shown up late and spent most of the service checking his phone. Kendrick was 52, a real estate developer who treated family like business transactions. His wife Fallon stood beside him, equally disinterested in her expensive designer clothes. After the burial at Green Lawn Cemetery, I drove toward Grandmother's house on Maple Grove Road. She'd lived there 63 years in a beautiful Victorian home worth a fortune despite its age. Grandmother had refused every offer to sell. "This house holds my memories," she'd always said. I planned to spend the evening there, going through her things. But as I turned onto Maple Grove Road, I saw something that made my blood run cold. A massive excavator sat in the front yard. The house was gone, completely demolished. Where the Victorian had stood that morning, there was nothing but rubble and dust. Workers in hard hats were loading debris into dump trucks. A sign read, "Kendrick Development Corporation, future site of Maple Grove luxury condominiums." I jumped out of my car, heart hammering. "What are you doing?" "That's my grandmother's house." The foreman looked at me with confusion. "Ma'am, we have proper permits. Mr. Kendrick owns this property. The demolition was scheduled for today. He doesn't own it. My grandmother just died this morning. We were at her funeral." The foreman pulled out paperwork. "According to our records, ownership transferred to Kendrick Development 2 weeks ago." 2 weeks ago? Grandmother had been in hospice, barely conscious. How could ownership have transferred? I called Kendrick immediately. He answered sounding cheerful. "Celestine, how are you holding up?" "I'm standing in front of Grandmother's house. What's left of it?" "You demolished it during her funeral." There was a pause. "Yeah, I had to move quickly on this development. The contractors had a narrow window." "That wasn't your house." "Actually, it was. Grandmother signed the property over to me before she died. I have the deed transfer, properly notarized. Everything's legal. She would never do that. She loved that house." "Well, she did. I'm sorry you're upset, but business is business." He hung up. I drove straight to Grandmother's lawyer, Soren Blackwell. His office was downtown in an old brick building. Soren had handled her legal affairs for 30 years. His secretary said he'd been expecting me. That seemed odd. Soren was 71 with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Celestine, I'm so sorry about Winslow." "Soren, Kendrick demolished her house today. He claims she signed it over 2 weeks ago." Soren's expression darkened. "Sit down. We need to talk." He pulled out a file. 3 weeks ago, Kendrick visited your grandmother in hospice. She was heavily medicated, barely conscious. He brought papers claiming they were medical forms. But they weren't. No, they were property transfer documents. He had a notary with him, someone with a questionable history. Your grandmother was in no condition to understand. I felt sick. That's fraud. That's elder abuse. Yes, and it gets worse. Soren showed me documents. Kendrick filed the transfer immediately. By the time I learned about it, she'd passed. I filed objections, but the demolition permit was already issued. Can we reverse it? We can try, but it's complicated. The property is demolished. Even proving fraud, getting fair compensation will be difficult. I stared at the rubble through his window. There has to be something. Soren leaned forward. Your grandmother knew Kendrick would try something. She came to see me 6 months ago when diagnosed. She made certain arrangements. He pulled out another document. She created a trust, separate from her estate. Assets Kendrick doesn't know exist. What assets? She wouldn't tell me specifics. She said she had something valuable in a safety deposit box at First National Bank, something that would set things right if Kendrick got greedy. Do you have the key? No. She said she'd leave it where you'd find it, somewhere Kendrick wouldn't think to look. I thought about the demolished house, now rubble. If grandmother had hidden a key there, it was gone. Unless, her jewelry box. She kept a small one in her purse always, even in hospice. Soren nodded. The hospice facility boxed up her personal items. They're being held for you as executor. I drove to Riverside Hospice immediately. The staff handed me a small box of grandmother's belongings. Inside were her glasses, photographs, her wedding ring, and the wooden jewelry box I remembered. It was hand-carved, a gift from my grandfather. I opened it carefully. Inside were costume jewelry pieces and at the bottom, wrapped in paper, a small brass key. The paper had grandmother's shaky handwriting, for Celestine. Box 847, First National. Everything you need is inside. Don't let Kendrick win. Love, Winnie. The next morning, I went to First National Bank with Soren. The bank manager led us to the vault. Box 847 required both my key and the bank's master to open. Inside was a thick envelope and several items. I opened the envelope first. Property deeds for 2 other properties I didn't know grandmother owned, a commercial building downtown and an apartment complex near the university. Stock certificates, bonds, investment statements. Grandmother had been quietly wealthy, far more than anyone realized. But the most shocking item was a video recording on a USB drive, labeled, to be watched by Celestine only. We went to Soren's office and played it. Grandmother's face appeared, filmed maybe a year ago when healthy. Hello, my darling Celestine. If you're watching this, I'm gone, and I suspect Kendrick has done something terrible. She smiled sadly. I've known for years Kendrick only saw me as money. Grandmother continued. He's visited exactly 4 times in the last decade, each time asking about my will, the house, what I plan to leave him. I'm not a fool, so I took precautions. The Maple Grove house was important emotionally, but I knew Kendrick would target it. I let him think that was my only major asset, but I've been more careful with my money than he realizes. She held up documents. I own the Riverside commercial building on 4th Street, worth $2 million. I own Maple Gardens apartments, 12 units, worth another $1.5 million. I have investment accounts totaling $600,000, all held in the Winslow Family Trust, with you as sole beneficiary. Kendrick doesn't know about any of this. Let him have his condominiums. You have everything that truly matters. The video ended. This changes everything, Soren said quietly. With these assets, you're in a strong position. And we can still sue for fraud. I want to do more than sue. I want everyone to know what he did. Over the next week, I secured all trust assets. The properties were legitimately mine, documents properly filed years ago. Kendrick had no claim, but I also contacted Ohio Adult Protective Services and filed a formal complaint. I provided evidence. The timeline, medical records showing grandmother's condition, hospice staff testimony. The investigation moved quickly. The notary admitted under questioning that Kendrick had paid him $5,000 to notarize documents without verifying the signer was competent. That was criminal. The county prosecutor charged Kendrick with exploitation of an elderly person, fraud, and conspiracy. His bail was set at $50,000. Local news picked up the story. Developer charged with defrauding dying grandmother, ran in the Columbus Dispatch. The details were damning. He'd waited until she was medicated and dying, demolished her home during her funeral. Public opinion turned viciously against him. His development company lost clients. Business partners distanced themselves. Banks reconsidered his credit lines. Fallon filed for divorce within 2 weeks, claiming ignorance. Kendrick called me 3 weeks after his arrest, voice desperate. Celestine, please, this has gotten out of hand. Can we talk? About exploiting our dying grandmother? About demolishing her house during her funeral? I made a mistake. I was under financial pressure. The business was struggling. I needed that development. So you committed fraud. I thought she wouldn't remember signing. I thought no one would question it. His honesty was startling. If I go to prison, I lose everything. You should have thought about that before you betrayed our grandmother. I hung up, but his words stayed with me, not from sympathy, but because I realized he still didn't know about the trust, the other properties, grandmother's true estate. The trial was set for 6 months later. Meanwhile, I managed the properties she'd left me. The Riverside commercial building had 3 tenants bringing steady income. Maple Gardens apartments were well maintained and fully occupied. I hired a property management company for daily operations. I also established a scholarship fund in grandmother's name at Ohio State University using investment income. She would have loved that. One afternoon, I drove past the Maple Grove property. Kendrick's development had stalled. Without his other business supporting it, he couldn't secure construction financing. The lot sat empty, rubble cleared but nothing built. A monument to his greed. Paxton, Kendrick's son, contacted me unexpectedly. We met at a downtown coffee shop. He looked tired, embarrassed. Celestine, I need you to know I didn't support what my father did. I wasn't told until after the demolition. But you're standing by him. He's my father. But I'm horrified. Great-grandmother was always kind to me. I remember visiting her house, how magical it seemed. He pulled out an envelope. I found something. My father kept files about the property transfer at home. I made copies before my mother's divorce lawyers seized everything. I thought you should have them. Inside were emails between Kendrick and the notary, explicitly discussing how to get grandmother to sign documents she wouldn't understand. Text messages to Fallon. Got the house. Demo scheduled for day of funeral. She'll never know. Damning evidence showing clear premeditation. Why are you giving this to me? Paxton looked out the window. Because it's right, and because I don't want to become my father. I gave the documents to Soren, who forwarded them to the prosecutor. The trial lasted 3 days. Evidence was overwhelming. Medical records, the timeline, financial motive, the emails, text messages. Hospice staff testified grandmother had been barely conscious when Kendrick visited. The notary testified about being paid to falsify certification. Kendrick's defense crumbled under cross-examination. The jury deliberated 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced Kendrick to 3 years in prison and ordered restitution of $800,000, the appraised property value plus damages. He'd never pay it. His company went bankrupt. The Maple Grove lot was seized by creditors and sold at auction. A different developer bought it and built affordable housing instead of luxury condominiums. Grandmother would have approved. Fallon's divorce was finalized. She got little since marital assets were tied up in the failed business. Paxton started working for a different development company with actual ethics. He visited sometimes, trying to maintain family connection despite everything. 6 months after the trial, I stood before the Riverside commercial building, looking up at its Art Deco facade. Grandmother had bought this 40 years ago, maintained it carefully, built something lasting. This was her true legacy, not the house Kendrick destroyed. I'd learned something important. Material possessions matter less than values and wisdom passed down through generations. Grandmother's house was gone, but her intelligence, foresight, determination to protect what mattered, those lived on in me. I used trust income to commission a memorial bench in Schiller Park, where grandmother used to take me as a child. The plaque read, Winslow Hargrove, 1932 to 2023. She built wisely and loved deeply. Simple, true, perfect. Sometimes I visited the empty lot on Maple Grove Road. The affordable housing development was under construction now, families who actually needed homes moving in. In a strange way, this outcome might have pleased grandmother more than luxury condominiums. Life moved forward. I was 64, alone but not lonely, financially secure thanks to grandmother's planning. I volunteered at a senior advocacy organization, using my experience to help other elderly people protect themselves from exploitation. I spoke at community centers about warning signs of financial abuse. I helped families navigate the legal system when their relatives proved untrustworthy. Kendrick wrote to me once from prison. The letter was long, rambling, full of justifications and half-apologies. He claimed stress, business pressures, never meant for things to go so far. I read it once and burned it. Some actions can't be forgiven, and I wasn't interested in absolving guilt he absolutely deserved. The final piece of grandmother's estate settled 2 years after her death. Every asset accounted for, every document filed, everything she'd built now secured and producing income. On the anniversary of her passing, I visited her grave with fresh flowers. You were smarter than all of us, Winnie, I said aloud. You knew exactly what Kendrick was, and you protected me anyway. Thank you. A breeze rustled the trees overhead. I liked to think it was her saying you're welcome. I drove home to the small house I'd bought with trust income, comfortable and manageable. That evening, I opened grandmother's wooden jewelry box and looked at the costume jewelry inside. None of it was valuable monetarily, but every piece held memories. This was the real inheritance. Not money or property, but love, wisdom, and the knowledge that someone had cared enough to fight for me even from beyond the grave. Elder financial abuse is one of the fastest growing crimes in America. Family members account for over 60% of these cases. They wait until elderly relatives are vulnerable, sick, medicated, dying, then steal property and assets while pretending to care. If you have elderly family members, protect them. Make sure legal documents are properly witnessed and notarized by reputable professionals. Question any sudden property transfers or will changes, especially when someone is hospitalized or in hospice. If you suspect abuse, report it immediately to Adult Protective Services. Don't assume other family members have good intentions. My grandmother knew that sad truth and planned accordingly. Her foresight saved everything she'd built and taught me a crucial lesson. Trust must be earned, even from family. Especially from family. To anyone facing similar circumstances, know this. Justice takes time, but it's worth fighting for. Document everything. Work with honest lawyers. Don't let criminals hide behind family relationships. And remember that the best revenge isn't violence or cruelty, it's exposing the truth and ensuring they face real consequences. Kendrick lost his freedom, business, reputation, and family. All because he couldn't wait until after his grandmother's funeral to destroy her home. That's not just justice, that's karma. The property's grandmother left me continue generating income that I use for good purposes. The scholarship fund has helped 12 students so far. The affordable housing on Maple Grove provides homes for families who need them. The commercial building supports small local businesses. Grandmother's legacy lives on in tangible ways that help people, which would have made her proud. Sometimes people ask if I regret not confronting Kendrick earlier, if I could have prevented the house demolition. The answer is no. Grandmother knew what she was doing. She let him take the house because she'd protected everything that truly mattered. She played a longer game than he could imagine. That's the difference between greed and wisdom. Greed sees immediate gain. Wisdom builds for the future and protects what matters most. Grandmother had wisdom. Kendrick only had greed. And in the end, wisdom won. I sleep well at night knowing I honored grandmother's wishes, protected her true legacy, and made sure Kendrick faced full consequences for his actions. The jewelry box sits on my dresser now, a daily reminder of the woman who raised me and the values she instilled. Every morning when I see it, I remember that real wealth isn't measured in properties or bank accounts. It's measured in the lives you touch, the people you help, the values you pass on to the next generation. Grandmother touched countless lives. She helped me become who I am. She planned carefully to protect me even after she was gone. And through the scholarship fund and affordable housing, she's still helping people she'll never meet. That's the kind of legacy that matters. Kendrick's legacy is a criminal record and a family that wants nothing to do with him. He had the chance to be part of something good, to honor his grandmother and support his family. Instead, he chose greed and paid the price. I don't hate him, I pity him. He destroyed his own life for money that wasn't even his most valuable target. If grandmother were here, I think she'd be satisfied with how things turned out. Kendrick faced justice. I'm financially secure and using the resources wisely. Her memory is honored, her values live on, and somewhere, I like to think she's smiling, knowing her plan worked perfectly. She outmaneuvered him from beyond the grave, protecting me and teaching both of us important lessons about family, trust, and the long-term consequences of our choices. To everyone reading this, protect your elderly loved ones. Plan carefully for your own future. Choose trustees and executors wisely. And remember that the people who love you most will protect you even when they're gone, if you've built your life on wisdom instead of greed. Grandmother did exactly that, and her gift to me was so much more than money. It was security, justice, and peace of mind. Thank you, Winnie. I'll never forget. Elder financial abuse affects millions of Americans every year. Family members are the most common perpetrators, using their positions of trust to steal from vulnerable elderly relatives. They wait for moments of weakness, hospitalizations, medication, cognitive decline, and strike when their victims can't defend themselves. My grandmother anticipated this. She knew her grandson saw her as a bank account rather than family. So she set traps, created protections, and ensured that if he acted on his greed, I'd have the resources and evidence to fight back. Her planning saved me and destroyed him. If you're elderly, protect yourself. Create trusts with independent trustees. Use reputable attorneys. Document your wishes clearly when you're healthy. Tell trusted people your plans so sudden changes raise red flags. If you're a family member of an elderly person, watch for warning signs. Sudden property transfers, new people controlling finances, isolation from other family, unexplained withdrawals from accounts. Ask questions. Demand documentation. Report suspicious activity to Adult Protective Services immediately. Justice for elder abuse is possible, but it requires vigilance, courage, and determination. My grandmother gave me all three through her careful planning. Honor your elders by protecting them while they're alive and honoring their true wishes after they're gone. Elder financial abuse costs victims $3 billion annually. Report suspected abuse to Adult Protective Services. Protect the vulnerable before it's too late. And now to the lovely viewers of this channel. Got a story? We want to hear it. Your voice matters here. Whether it's a personal experience, a revenge moment, a wild betrayal, or just an idea that could make our next story even better, we're listening. Tell us what themes you want more of. What twists keep you hooked? What hit you hardest in this story? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. The best suggestions might become our next viral story. Make sure to subscribe to the channel for more satisfying stories like this. Thanks for watching.